What experience and expertise do you possess that make you the most qualified candidate to be the president?
Well, first I must say my fellow candidates each bring distinct strengths and reputations and life stories, which I respect. But I'll have to say respectfully that none of them brings the breadth and depth of experience that I have and which I'll bring to the presidency. My experience internationally in flying the Singapore flag high across a range of fields, economics and finance, environment, pandemic preparedness, even human development and education. My breadth of experience on everything to do with the reserves, put quite simply, I know the whole system of safeguarding and using reserves inside out. No one can fool me. And in particular, I'm deeply familiar with the areas that are relevant to the presidency, which are not to do with the management of reserves, not to do with the investment of reserves, but to do with the safeguarding and use of reserves, not the investment of reserves, but the use of reserves. And that's where my experience as a Minister of Finance for 9 years, Deputy Prime Minister and Senior Minister have frankly been invaluable. And my direct experience of dealing with several crises is invaluable. Thirdly, I'm the candidate that has a real track record of experience on the ground, of uniting people, building community spirit, creating second chances, and giving hope to people. So it's that combination of a presence on the international stage that's respected, of a breadth of knowledge on our entire system of safeguarding and using reserves, including the Ministry of Finance role and the government's role, not just that of the GIC or the investment entities, and a real track record on the ground.
Well, the president has been described as Singapore's chief diplomat. What unique traits do you possess that will help you represent Singapore on the global stage?
To represent Singapore effectively on the world stage, you have to be able to work with government. The president represents Singapore, and he has to work closely with the government and know what Singapore's interests are. It's been really my privilege to be able to serve Singapore internationally, both through my leadership of various international councils, as well as in building up a solid set of relationships with senior figures in Asia, in the West, in the developing world. And I intend to use that if I'm elected president. But there's an additional characteristic that has to be the Singapore way and the Singapore voice of reason. When we act in leadership internationally, when we contribute internationally, we've got to understand the differences of interest between countries, understand the different plights that countries are in, including in the developing world, and find ways of establishing common ground. That's the biggest missing ingredient in the world today. Identifying common ground between contesting parties and countries in very different circumstances. And Singapore, as a small country that owes its future and depends in its future on an open global system, is best placed to find that common ground, respect differences of positions, and find ways of bridging them. That's the Singapore leadership style.
What role would you play as president to build a more inclusive and compassionate society?
Well, that's been my whole life purpose, building a fairer and more inclusive society. From my days as a student activist through my 40-plus years in government. And now, if I'm fortunate to be elected as president, I intend to be an active president, supporting ground-up initiatives by civil society organizations, NGOs, groups of volunteers, every initiative to help everyone with disadvantage. It's not just about charity. It's got to be about upliftment, focused on the kids in the earliest stages of their lives, those who start off with less. Early lives matter. Focus on those who are going through mental stress, mental wellness issues at all ages of life. Build second chances and third chances for those who made a mistake and want to get back up and need that social trampoline, that trampoline of moral support that everyone can provide them. And as we get to be an older society, never lose sight of the fact that it's easy to be lonely as you get older. Help the elderly, particularly those living alone. So every ground-up initiative that can help everyone stay together but also feel uplifted is going to help them, and it will also help uplift our spirit as a society.